Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, babies in their diapers, welcome to the Tiberius Show with your host, Tiberius Boy!
That's me, Tiberius!
That's him!
Today, we're going to talk about some very awesome stuff. We have a video about being an Uber driver, a book about the Babysitters Club helping a family on a beach trip, and we have a totally awesome guest. Today we have the one, the only, the amazing Alec Eddinger! Alec is a healthcare analyst who manages SQL databases.
Thanks so much, Tiberius. Super excited to be here.
No problem. Well, today we're going to start off with the video of the week, and this is going to be a ride.
And now it's time for the video game of the week.
Today's video game is the Uber game. This game is made by Next Gen Personal Finance. This is a website that teaches you about personal finance. You can find it at ngpf.org and click on the arcade button. So, you start the game and they teach you how to play, but I'll give you a shorter version. You are volunteering for Uber to drive people from place to place and has a child and has to pay $1,000 for his mortgage bill. So, you then have to choose if you want the easier mode or the harder mode. Next, I always pick the easy mode. And now you're at the first person's house waiting for him to go outside. And then they give you a choice to call him or wait. I go ahead and call him. He says he'll be out there in a second. I say take your time, be polite. And then you're on his way to where he wants to go because he comes outside and gets in your car to go ahead and go. So surprisingly, he's going to camping. But next you have to choose which car you want to use for a week because you're only Uber driving for a week. Next, you have to buy supplies on where you can choose which one you want. There are phone mounts, cleaning supplies, business licenses, gym memberships, and then you keep on driving. But yeah, I got my dad to play, and he was very good at it. He, at the end, saved like $20. I always saved $40 with the $1,000 mortgage bill.
Wow, that seems like a really realistic game.
Very realistic. Well, I give the Uber game 10 out of 10 stars because I really like this game, getting my Uber interest to very high. I really enjoy that it's challenging and keeps me on my toes. My dad said that it was a good way to learn about how running your own business works and the benefits and pitfalls of working in a car all day. And now it's time for the book of the week, The Babysitters Club, Boy Crazy Stacy. This book is written by Anne Martin. Let me read to the back of the book. In fact, Alec, would you like to do the honors?
I would love to, Tiberius. Stacy and Mary Ann are babysitting for the Pike family for 2 weeks at the New Jersey shore. When Stacy's focus turns to the cutest boy she has ever seen, Mary Ann finds herself doing the job of 2 babysitters.
Goodness. Well, this is an ad worth 1 whole point. It's rated for 3rd grade and 2nd month. This is not a lot of points because it's a graphic novel, but the subject matter is made for teens.
Are those types of books that you usually like to read?
It's teen books, so I'm a preteen, so I'm getting to learn teen stuff,
Ooh.
So in book 7 of the Babysitters Club, we start off with the Babysitters Club in a meeting with other babysitters. And then they talked about the trip that other people were making to spend time with their parents for 2 weeks. But the Pikes wanted to have 2 babysitters for their annual beach trip to Sea City, and Stacy and Marianne are on the job, and they will be gone for 2 weeks, and so will everyone else, so they can spend the time with their parents. Next, the Pikes take 2 vehicles. Stacy's in one of the cars, and Marianne is in the other car, and also Mallory, a new junior officer that is part of the Pike family, was going on the trip to Sea City too, because she's part of the family. Then, what happened was they got to Sea City, and then they went to the beach right outside the hotel, and then Stacy sees a cute boy, and you know what? I don't want to tell you because it will spoil the book for you. Well, I give Babysitters Club Boy Crazy Stacy 12 out of 10 stars because I really like at the end Stacy finds what it's like to be good friends and to work together.
Sounds like a nice novel there that you read.
Oh yeah, there's tons more.
12 out of 10? Awesome.
And now it's time for an interview of an interesting person. Today's guest is going to be so much fun. Today we have the one, the only, the amazing Alec Eddinger. Alec is a healthcare analyst who manages SQL databases.
Once again, Tiberius, amazing introduction. Super excited to be here.
No problem.
Thanks for having me.
No problem. Well, so first off, how were you enjoying being on the show?
It's awesome. I wish I could be on the show every week, honestly.
Okay. So to start off, you are listed as a healthcare analyst and an SQL database manager. I have interviewed an analyst before, but what exactly is an SQL database and why do they need managers?
That's a good question. SQL database simply is a place where you store a bunch of different data that relates to one another. My work, I don't explicitly manage a database, but I interact with it a lot. So why do they need managers? Because, we have a lot of people on our team that access them. Sometimes you need help unlocking users, changing permissions, stuff like that. So SQL databases are super strong, super powerful when you use them. So they always need people to manage them.
Okay, so the analyst I interviewed before worked for Indeed and analyzed reports about the type of people that got jobs based on gender and race and other factors. What types of reports do you do to create for healthcare?
The reports that we create usually have to do with drugs being dispensed to patients, savings that hospitals make when purchasing drugs, stuff like that. So typically we'll have questions come in from clients as to why data might look a certain way, why they're seeing things. And basically we can create reports, we can run scripts to show them, hey, here's what we're seeing on our end. Here's what you sent to us. This patient received this drug on this date, and it's, eligible for replenishment at this eligibility type. So, we help them get insight into their data, basically.
Nice. So what are these reports so important, and how does this make the world a better place?
Well, they're important because, it deals with real people, the, real procedures and drugs that they get done at hospitals or outpatient centers and stuff like that. So basically we're helping hospitals, doctors, pharmacists, save the most amount on drugs as possible so that they can pass the savings on to the patients. And I think that's, helpful in the real world, helping people save the treatment that they need at the lowest possible cost.
Okay. Now, what got you interested in analyzing data?
Well, you're pretty interested in math, right, Tiberius?
Mm-hmm.
So I always enjoyed math, was pretty good at it. I never really liked programming, though. But when I started taking it in college, I enjoyed it more and more. And, it's an in-demand skill. But I've always just enjoyed explaining things with data, trying to see why things happen the way they are, just coming in with a curious mind and putting the puzzle pieces together and winding up with a story that makes sense and explains, what's going on.
Okay. Well, do you ever have to talk to the patients or the doctors in the hospital?
Sure. We talk to doctors, pharmacists, not really patients per se, but, our clients are hospitals. So if a doctor needs to reach out, or a pharmacist, or someone in a specialized role at that hospital to see why things are the way that they are, I will definitely interact with them and answer their questions and help them out for sure.
Okay. So what is the best part about working in this business?
I think just the aspect that, you are touching people's lives, trying to get the best outcomes for patients and doctors. Healthcare is relatively complicated in the U.S. There's a lot of help needed for hospitals. They're understaffed and stuff. So I think just, it's an easy way to have real world impact.
Okay. So does it take a lot of training to be an SQL database manager and healthcare analyst?
I wouldn't say so. A big part of the job is what's called 340B. It's a lot of regulations. Obviously, healthcare has a lot to do with the government and stuff like that. So that aspect of it can be a little difficult to, get knowledge on. But I had no knowledge of that aspect of healthcare coming into it, and I'm doing fine. Mainly learning SQL, being comfortable with programming, and being curious, using logic and stuff to come to conclusions and stuff is mainly what you need. Just the right mindset, I would say.
Okay. So now, what's the hardest part about this type of work?
The hardest part would probably be that it never stops. That we have tons of clients at any point in time. They could have any number of questions. Every problem we get is different. So I could have a case for a client that's like, hey, can you create this report for me? And I'll have another case for a client at the same time where they're looking for an in-depth analysis or some sort of intricate data correction that I need to write a script for. So you're always kind of moving and working on different problems,
Okay.
Which makes it challenging, but also fun and engaging at the same time. So the hardest part of the job might be the most fun as well.
What is a normal day in the life of a healthcare analyst like?
So you log on in the morning, you might have, a new case or two in your queue to work on. You can reach out to clients with any results that you've gotten over the last few days. Basically, prioritize what cases you have, whether they're reports, data corrections, investigations. Work on those, try to get as much done on that as possible. If you have something to submit to the team, as far as like a report or a script, we have a quality assurance process. So we have a person on our team that I would send scripts to or reports to, and he'll basically work through our SQL code, our logic that we use to create this.
Okay.
He'll quality assure that what you did looks good and it's good to send to the client. He'll let us know that that's good, and we can provide that to the client or run the data correction, and that would be a case.
Sweet. Now, I met you at a board game party. This is where my dad takes me to places to play board games on, and we get to play all day and all night long. They are the best. Do playing board games help make you better at your work?
I would say so, honestly. When you're playing board games, you have a set of rules that everyone's working around. You're trying your best to optimize your turns and make the best decisions.
Okay.
You can think of healthcare as a big board game, or something like that, where you got a bunch of rules and regulations that hospitals need to follow, and if they get audited or something like that, they might ask for our help to go through and make any sort of corrections that need to be done. So we're following rules, we're optimizing what decisions we're making to basically get the best outcome, which is essentially what you do when you're playing a board game. So
Okay. Well, what type of board games do you like the best?
I like all types of board games. I'm a big fan of like role-playing games. Yeah, I like all types. I'm not someone who knows necessarily all the different categories. But yeah, anything that you can apply strategy to, I'm a big fan.
Strategy games. Okay.
Sure. Yeah.
I'm a strategy game kind of guy too.
Nice.
Well, if you could think of one thing that would make your job easier or better, what would it be?
That's interesting actually, because I just got another monitor that I've been working with for the past few weeks, and I feel like that's definitely boosted my productivity.
Double monitor?
Yeah, so I got 2 monitors, and
Nice.
then my laptop screen, which is kind of like
Triple monitor.
it's 3 monitors, 2 big
Nice.
ones, and then the one down here. So I mean that helps when you're working on a script or something, and you need your development environment over here. You got like your reference over here, and then maybe like your messenger in the smaller window or something like that. And that's something that I downgraded from when I started working from home. I was just working on 2 screens, but once you get that third, it's a big
Ooh,
improvement.
that's
So,
precious.
yeah, I think 4 might be too much, but 3 is perfect.
Okay. So what advice would you give to my listeners if they wanted to grow up and work as a database manager or a healthcare analyst?
I would say learn SQL first. Well, not necessarily first, but that's a big one. And
Yeah.
and it's not necessarily too difficult to learn. I would recommend everyone to learn SQL, especially as we move into like more technological, data driven future that we're moving towards. It's just helpful to understand how data is stored, how to access it, and query it. But in general, I'd say, learn some programming, learn SQL, develop your problem-solving skills, play some board games, solve some puzzles, and you'll be good to
Sweet. Did you know that there's a one-player board game?
go. What is that?
So it's called Box One, and I just got it for Christmas. It's really cool, but I haven't opened it up yet, so that's why I'm like, whoa.
Okay.
I can't wait to bring it to the board game party. But when you were a kid, what did you want to do when you grew up? Did you always know that you're going to be working with databases?
Oh, not databases specifically, but I knew that something in math would be interesting to me. My dad is an actuary, which basically involves like risk management and stuff like that. So I was originally kind of inspired to go that route. When I was finishing school, the courses didn't necessarily line up for me to get that specific degree. But like I mentioned before, I was doing programming and stuff, and I didn't necessarily enjoy that at first, but learned to love it. So that's kind of the route that I went down.
Okay. Well, I run a radio show and podcast that talks about God in my Line Strong segment. How do you include God's message in your work?
I would say just giving, the utmost respect to people, doing the best quality of work with, the end user in mind, whether they be like a patient or a doctor or anything, just trying to give them the best service possible, so that, it helps them out, it helps their patients out, and it just leaves, positive impact on people's lives.
What was the first job that you ever had?
The first job I ever had was actually as a soccer referee. So just going out and refereeing, little kids' games at first, not doing too much, just, making sure no one gets hurt, stuff like that, following the rules and stuff. So,
But was there anything you learned from that job that helped you to be a better healthcare analyst?
maybe not from that job. That job was mostly, learning to be responsible, to show up on time, and stuff like that, which I guess that, that would apply to any job that you would get. But
I
I'd
mean,
say
you did say not getting hurt, like trying to help others not get hurt, but that could also be help with healthcare because it's healthcare.
good point. But I'd say
Well,
maybe my second job working in a restaurant also helped, just learning to communicate with a lot of different people, working as a team, that sort of stuff.
okay. Well, what message do you want to tell children all over the world about doing the work that you do?
I would say, it's fulfilling to work in the healthcare industry. I think there's a lot of work that needs to be done there. So if you're passionate about helping others and having a direct impact on people's lives, then look for a role in the healthcare industry. There's a lot of different things that you could do. For me specifically, I could do database stuff in a bunch of different industries, but healthcare definitely seems like there's a lot of work that needs to be done that you could help out with that sort of stuff. So yeah.
Well, what was the biggest mistake you ever made, and how did it change you as a person?
Wow, that's a tough question. I would say probably one of the biggest mistakes would be not wearing hearing protection. I'm a big music fan, playing drums and stuff like that. So I played drums for over 10 years at this point.
I love drums, especially guitars.
Nice.
I love guitars.
Yeah, I play guitar too. But definitely want to take care of your hearing when you're young. Once you lose it, it's hard, if not impossible, to get it back. I noticed a few years ago that I had a little bit of a ringing in my ears. So started, to take it easy on loud music and stuff like that. But definitely, something I would recommend to not make the same mistake of potentially losing your hearing, which is not a good thing.
No, it's not.
You
So when you're not working on analyzing data, what do you do for fun?
Well, that's a great segue because I love playing music. I have a band that I play with down here in South Florida called Papillon. Love jamming with those guys. Love playing board games, obviously, as we've mentioned. That sort of stuff is super fun for me. Cool.
Well, do you play video games? And if you do, what's your favorite one?
I do play video games, not as much as I used to, but I love video games.
What's your favorite one?
Awesome. That's a hard question, but I love Super Smash Bros. Melee for the GameCube. GameCube was my generation of consoles. Super fun games on that. But yeah, Super Smash Bros. Specifically Melee. There's still tournaments that go on with that. So that's one of the only kind of esports things that I watch.
Okay.
Super Smash Bros. Tournaments. So.
Well, do you have a Facebook or a website for my listeners that want to follow you?
I try to stay off social media. I don't have a Facebook anymore. Maybe that's what I should tell you, is that social media kind of sucks. Maybe that's my message.
I mean, he's not wrong though.
My message is to get outside more.
Okay.
When you're not doing the show, obviously this show is very important. But just getting outside and having real world experiences with people, connecting in person, especially after COVID and stuff like that. It's important.
Okay. So what is that one question that you think I forgot to ask you?
I guess what kind of music I play, what kind of music I enjoy.
What kind of music do you enjoy?
I like weird stuff. I like stuff that's kind of outside of the norm, stuff that you wouldn't necessarily hear on the radio or on the top 50s and stuff like that.
I feel the same way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like listening to almost ambience kind of stuff where, people might not necessarily think that anything's really going on. But when I'm at work and stuff, I'll just put on a kind of a beat and ambient stuff in the background. And that kind of gets me going, It keeps me.
Well, thank you, Alec, for being my special guest. Can you stick around for Math Corners?
I would love to.
Thank you.
Tiberius' favorite subject, it's Math Corners!
Well, thank you so much, Alec, for helping me with Math Corners. This week, since we have a database expert right over here, we're going to talk about data sets.
Sounds good to me.
Okay. So first we'll start with the definition. A data set is a collection of data that is usually organized in a table form. This can be stored in a number of ways. Tabs would be like numerical data, which is all the numbers, so calculations can be done to them, But then you can get bivariate data, which is two sets of variables such as money earned to compare, such as work hours. Finally, you have multivariate data, which is where you have more than 3 variables like distance, rate, and time of cars.
This is true. These are all different kinds of data.
Sometimes the data is sorted by category like favorite colors or age. Data can also be sorted in a correlation, which is where the data creates a pattern that increases or decreases the same amount based on something. Like how someone slows down work based on how long he was worked. This is key to using data to create predictive models.
That's right. And sometimes the data is messy and it's not stored in the right place, so you gotta clean it up. That's a big part too.
True. Well, after you get all the data, you get to analyze it with methods like mean, median, mode, and range. But those are elements for another day. So, Alec, which method do you use the most when you're doing healthcare analyzing?
I'd say, we keep it pretty simple when we're doing our analyses. We do what's called like an aggregation of data. So we could take, say all the books that you read or something like that. And we could take the sum of the number of pages that you read, for instance, and we get Tiberius's total pages read for the month. Per minute. Sure. Why not?
Per minute, per second, per millisecond.
Per year.
Yeah.
We get a high number.
Very high number.
Typically we're doing an aggregation of a big set of data, and we want to distill that down to, here's the sum of the quantity that was purchased, for example, or here's the count of the number of rows that satisfy this condition. So typically we're doing counts, we're doing sums. We might take an average here or there, but typically it's relatively simple stats that we're looking at, and we'll look at like a sum or a count or something like that.
Okay. Well, thank you so much, Alec, for your help with Math Corners.
Absolutely. I feel like I didn't do anything, but I hope that was beneficial. Math.
And now it's time for the Heart of a Lion. As you know, we talk about the qualities of living by the Heart of a Lion, which stands for leadership, integrity, obedience, and ability. This week, we're going to talk about integrity. For me, I think integrity is doing what is right even when no one else is looking. The qualities of integrity is honesty, sincerity, truthfulness, and fairness. So this weekend, I visited a friend to play some board games, and we were going to be playing cards. There's a glass table where we were playing. I could see everyone's cards because of the reflection on the table. I told them that they could put a tablecloth on the table to remove the reflections. My dad says to always be on the lookout for reflective walls and so forth, so you can ensure a fair game. Then I noticed that I could still see reflections for those people that were wearing glasses. For this, I had to actively not look at people or I would see their cards. This is being fair and honest in true spirit of the game. And while sometimes it is hard to actively be aware of everything so you don't accidentally see with your hand.
That must have taken a lot of willpower to not look at people's glasses to see their hand.
It was very hard.
Maybe you should have them take off their glasses so they can't see anything.
True.
That wouldn't
But
be
then
good.
they won't be able to see their cards.
Yeah, that won't be good.
Yeah. So, Alec, did you see you were using integrity at all this week?
I definitely did, because I've been watching a lot of the World Cup recently.
World Cup.
I'm a big soccer fan, so, those are some big matches, some really important matches that those guys play. And, after every game, no matter the result, no matter how hard, the loss was, the players shake hands, they show good sportsmanship. They show integrity by, accepting the result and congratulating their opponents, that sort of stuff. So definitely seen a lot of that over the last few weeks.
Okay. So, of all of the Heart of a Lion virtues, which is your favorite?
I think not just because it's this week's attribute, but I'd say integrity would definitely be an important one. It might be my favorite because, like you said, it's something that you do even when no one's watching. It's something that's kind of dependent on you and being, the best person you can be. So I'd say integrity, maybe obedience, because obedience can be difficult as well.
Okay. Well, we should always try and be lion strong in everything we do, shouldn't we?
Absolutely.
And that's our show, folks. I want to thank the one, the only, the amazing Alec Eddinger for being on my show. It has been so much fun talking to you today. I think we learned a lot about what it's like to be a healthcare analyst, and I hope to see you at the next board game party.
Likewise, Tiberius, it's been amazing. Thank you so much for having me. And I
problem.
definitely hope to catch you at another board game night. Absolutely.
Thank you. Also,
Thank
you can
you.
find me on Facebook and Instagram at The Tiberius Show. And please be sure to visit The Tiberius Show on YouTube and subscribe. Also, be sure to join us next week on The Tiberius Show with your host, Tiberius Boy. That's a wrap, and booyah.